I didn't raise my voice. I didn't throw anything. I just started making calls. The first one was to my real estate attorney. The second was to a private buyer I'd worked with before. The third was to the catering company for a $50,000 Thanksgiving gala that was now never going to happen. By the time I finished that last call, I had set in motion something that would leave my wife and stepdaughter standing in an empty house on Thanksgiving morning, in front of all the people they wanted to impress. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Nicholas McCollum. I'm 55 years old. And for the past 10 years, I've been a stepfather to a woman named Cheryl. When I married her mother, Velma, Cheryl was 11, still in elementary school, full of energy and a smile that could light up a room. Velma and I met at a charity auction in San Francisco. She was divorced, elegant, and warm, or so I thought. Cheryl's biological father had left when she was 6. I wasn't trying to replace him. I never demanded she call me Dad. I was just trying to be there. And I was there for 10 years. I paid for her private school tuition when Velma said the public schools weren't good enough. I paid for her summer camps in Europe when she said all her friends were going. I paid for her car when she turned 16 and said she needed independence. I paid for her college apartment in Berkeley when she said the dorms were beneath her. I paid for her spring break trips to Cabo, to Miami, to Aspen. I paid for her first business idea, an online boutique that sold exactly 3 items before she got bored. That venture cost me $40,000. I didn't complain. I just closed the accounts quietly and helped her move on. I helped her move 5 times in 4 years. I co-signed her credit cards when her spending got out of control. I was there at midnight when she called because her boyfriend had dumped her and she needed someone to talk to. I was there when she got too drunk at a party and needed a ride home. No. Questions asked. I was there when she and Velma had their screaming matches and someone needed to be the calm voice in the middle. Velma used to say I spoiled her. Maybe I did. But Cheryl was the closest thing I'd ever have to a daughter. My first marriage ended before we had kids. This was my second chance at being a father, and I wanted to do it right. 6 weeks ago, Cheryl announced she was planning a Dream Day Thanksgiving. Not just a dinner, a full production. She'd been building her social media presence, trying to break into the San Francisco influencer scene, and she wanted to host an event that would put her on the map. She was inviting her boyfriend, Marcus, whose family had old Silicon Valley money. She was inviting a dozen of her wealthiest friends. She was inviting photographers, a content creator, even a local lifestyle blogger. The price tag, north of $50,000. Velma asked me one evening how much I thought we should spend. I told her not to worry. I'd cover it. All of it. It's what fathers do, I said, even stepfathers. Cheryl actually teared up when I told her. She hugged me tight and said I was amazing, that Marcus's parents could never do something like this, that this would change everything for her. Velma kissed me on the cheek and gave me that look she used to give me back when we first got married, before I became just the guy who paid for things. I should have seen it coming. Before I will tell you the details of what Cheryl brought to the house, please tell me your name, the city you're watching from, and hit the subscribe button as part of your great support towards the growth of the community we're building. 2 weeks ago, Cheryl came over to the house with a binder full of details, seating charts, menu options, decor samples. We sat in the kitchen going over final costs, talking about whether we needed valet parking, whether the floral arrangements should be fall-themed or modern minimalist, all the little decisions that go into trying to impress people who already have everything. We were halfway through the discussion when Cheryl's phone rang. It was her biological father. He lived in Portland now, remarried, barely in the picture, but he called every few months, usually, when he needed something or wanted to remind everyone he still existed. She put him on speaker. They talked about Thanksgiving. He said he might try to come down, wouldn't want to miss it. Then he said something that made my blood go cold. He asked if she was excited to have the real family all together again. Cheryl laughed. She said, "Yeah, it'll be perfect, just the people who actually matter." I looked up from the binder. She didn't look at me. Then her father said something about me, something I couldn't quite hear, and Cheryl responded, "He's helping with costs, obviously, but this is about us, the actual family." The room went still. I waited for her to correct herself, to say something, anything that acknowledged the decade I'd spent showing up. She didn't. She just kept talking to her father like I wasn't even there. I met Velma at a fundraiser for the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. She was standing by the bar in a black dress that probably cost more than my first car, laughing at something the curator had said. She had this way of making everyone around her feel like they were the only person in the room. I was 45, divorced for 3 years, and tired of coming home to an empty house in Pacific Heights that echoed with everything I'd never built. We were married 8 months later. Cheryl was 11, quiet at first, testing me the way kids do when a stranger moves into their mother's life. I didn't push. I just showed up. I took her to school when Velma had early meetings. I learned her favorite pizza toppings. I sat through her violin recitals, even though she quit after 6 months. Within a year, I'd enrolled her in one of the best private schools in the city. Bought her the right clothes so she'd fit in, with the other kids whose parents summered in Napa. I wanted her to have everything I didn't growing up in Sacramento. I wanted to build something that felt permanent, a family, a legacy, something that would outlast me. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Cheryl came to me in late October with a presentation. Not a request, a presentation. She had it on her iPad, complete with mood boards and budget breakdowns. She was 21 now, in her senior year at Berkeley, and she'd spent the past 2 years building what she called her personal brand. Instagram photos of brunches at Michelin-starred restaurants, TikTok videos about luxury lifestyle tips, a blog about being young and affluent in the Bay Area. She wanted to host what she called a Dream Day Thanksgiving, not a family dinner, an event. She'd met Marcus 3 months earlier at some tech startup mixer in Soma. His family had been in Silicon Valley since the 70s, real money. The kind that doesn't need to prove anything, and Cheryl wanted to prove she belonged in that world. The plan was elaborate, a professional chef, not a caterer, custom cocktails with names tied to San Francisco history, a live jazz trio, a photographer to capture content for her social channels. Thanksgiving dinner reimagined as performance art for people who'd seen everything. The guest list was 20 people, Marcus and his parents, Cheryl's most successful influencer friends, a lifestyle blogger with 500,000 followers, a venture capitalist Cheryl had met at a networking event, everyone who mattered in the ecosystem she was trying to break into. She walked me through every line item, the Wagyu beef, the wine pairings, the florals that alone cost more than most people's entire Thanksgiving budget. When she got to the total, she looked at me with those same big eyes she'd had at 11 when she wanted something. $53,000. I didn't hesitate. I told her yes. She hugged me so tight I could smell her perfume, the expensive kind Velma wore. She said I was the best, that this would change everything for her, that Marcus's family would finally see her as an equal. I believed her. We were in the kitchen 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, going over the final details. Cheryl had her laptop open, cross-referencing the seating chart with dietary restrictions. Velma was there too, drinking wine and offering opinions about which guests should sit near the windows for better lighting and photos. I was writing down notes about the timeline, what time the chef would arrive, when the photographer needed access to setup, basic logistics, the kind of background work that makes everything else possible. That's when Cheryl stopped typing. She looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not angry, just matter of fact. Clinical, almost. "So, about Thanksgiving Day," she said. "I think it would be better if you weren't here." I thought I'd misheard. "What?" "The vibe we're going for is very specific. Elegant, refined, authentic family energy. And honestly, you being here kind of disrupts that." She said it the way someone might comment on a piece of furniture that doesn't match the rest of the room. I looked at Velma. Surely she'd say something, tell Cheryl she was being ridiculous, remind her that I was paying for every single element of this authentic family fantasy. Velma took a sip of her wine. She didn't look at me. "Cheryl has a point," she said quietly. "This is really about her and her future. Maybe it's best if you give her this day." Cheryl nodded, already back to looking at her screen. "You're not my real dad anyway. You're just Nicholas. And Nicholas doesn't really fit the narrative we're building here." Just Nicholas. The words hung in the air like smoke. I waited for one of them to take it back, to laugh and say they were joking. Neither of them said a word. I stood up. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I just walked out of the kitchen and went upstairs to my office, and I started making calls. The house in Pacific Heights was mine. I'd bought it 6 years before I met Velma, back when I was still married to my first wife. After the divorce, I'd kept it, paid off the mortgage early, maintained it meticulously. When Velma moved in, I never added her name to the deed. Not out of malice, just never got around to it. She never asked. I'd kept my finances separate too. Old habit from the first marriage. I had my accounts. Velma had hers. I paid for the house, the property taxes, the maintenance, all of it from my own money. She paid for her personal expenses. It seemed clean that way. Professional. That separation was about to become very useful. I called David Thornton at 9 the next morning. We'd done business together for years. He specialized in fast closings for high net worth individuals who needed discretion. I told him I wanted to sell. Cash only, no contingencies, 10 days or less. He didn't ask why. That's why I called him. The Pacific Heights property? He said. I can have 3 offers by end of business today. I need it done quietly, I said. No signs, no public listings. And I need possession transferred the day after closing. Understood. Are you keeping anything? My personal office equipment, my clothes, everything else stays. By 6 that evening, I had 2 offers, both all cash, both willing to close in a week. I accepted the higher one, a tech executive relocating from Austin who wanted the house fully furnished. He didn't even want to negotiate. Said his wife had seen the photos and fell in love with it. The house was worth $3.2 million. He offered $3.4 to expedite everything. I signed the papers that night. Velma and Cheryl had no idea. They were at some pre-Thanksgiving spa appointment I'd paid for, getting facials and massages to prepare for the big day. They came home glowing, talking about how relaxed they felt, how ready they were for everything to be perfect. I smiled and asked how it went. Velma kissed me on the cheek and said I was sweet for thinking of them. I didn't tell her I'd just sold the house out from under her. I didn't tell her that in exactly 9 days, everything she thought was hers would belong to someone else. I just poured myself a scotch and listened to her talk about flower arrangements. I started with the caterer. Chef Antoine ran one of the most exclusive private dining operations in the Bay Area. Cheryl had been thrilled when he'd agreed to do Thanksgiving. He was booked months in advance, but I'd offered him double his usual rate. Antoine? It's Nicholas McCollum, I said when he answered. I need to cancel the Thanksgiving event. There was a pause. Cancel? Mr. McCollum, we're 5 days out. The deposit is non-refundable, and I understand I'll pay the full amount, the entire $5,300. I just need to make sure you don't show up on Thursday, not even by accident. Another pause. You want to pay me the full fee to not cook? That's correct. I'll wire the money today. I need confirmation in writing that you won't be there. He agreed. Probably thought I was insane, but money is money. Next was the florist. $12,000 in arrangements. Orchids shipped from Thailand. Roses from Ecuador, branches from some farm in Sonoma that specialized in organic sculptural elements. I paid her the full amount plus a 20% bonus for the inconvenience. The jazz trio, $4,000, paid in full. The photographer, $3,500, paid in full. The sommelier who was supposed to do the wine pairings, $2,500, paid. The valet service, the lighting designer, the woman who was going to do calligraphy place cards. Every single vendor on Cheryl's spreadsheet, I called them one by one. I didn't negotiate. I didn't explain. I just paid whatever they asked to guarantee they would not show up on Thanksgiving morning. The total came to just over $62,000. More than the original budget because of all the cancellation fees and bonuses I offered to ensure their cooperation. I didn't care. Each phone call felt like removing a piece from a structure that was about to collapse. Cheryl had built her entire dream day on my money, and now I was systematically dismantling it, one transaction at a time. The last call was to the rental company. They were supposed to deliver tables, chairs, linens, china, everything. I paid them $4,000 to not deliver anything. The woman on the phone asked if everything was okay. Everything's fine, I said. Just a change of plans. I hung up and looked at the list. Every vendor had been paid. Every element of Cheryl's perfect Thanksgiving had been erased, and she had no idea. Velma announced the spa retreat on Monday. She and Cheryl were going to Napa for 3 days. Some luxury resort with hot springs and couples massages and a personal wellness consultant. They'd be back Wednesday night, the day before Thanksgiving. We need to be centered for Thursday, Velma said. You understand. I understood perfectly. I told her to enjoy herself. I handed her my Amex and said to get whatever treatments they wanted. She kissed me on the forehead like I was a child who'd just done something sweet. They left Tuesday morning in Cheryl's Range Rover, the one I'd bought her for her 20th birthday. I gave them an hour head start, then I called the movers. I'd already leased a furnished condo in Sausalito. 2 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the bay, available immediately. I'd signed the lease the same day I'd accepted the offer on the house. The owner was spending a year in Singapore and needed someone reliable. I paid 6 months up front in cash. The movers arrived at noon. I'd made a list. My clothes, my personal files, my laptop and equipment from the office, my books, the watch collection my father left me. Everything that was mine before Velma, and a few things I'd bought after that, had nothing to do with her. It took 3 hours. The movers were efficient and discreet. By 4 in the afternoon, my entire life had been reduced to 27 boxes sitting in a condo across the bay. The house looked strange without my things, empty spaces on the bookshelves, gaps in the closet, but not empty enough that Velma would notice immediately. She never paid attention to my stuff anyway. The staging company arrived Wednesday morning. The new owner wanted the house exactly as it was, but he also wanted it to look like a showpiece, not a home. They rearranged furniture. They removed family photos and replaced them with generic art. They made the master bedroom look like a hotel suite. By Wednesday afternoon, the house didn't look like ours anymore. It looked like something from a magazine, beautiful, impersonal, cold. I walked through each room one last time. The kitchen where Cheryl had told me I was just Nicholas. The living room where Velma used to curl up next to me on Sunday mornings. The office where I'd signed away 10 years of my life, one check at a time. I didn't feel sad. I felt nothing. I locked the door behind me and drove to Sausalito. I woke up Thanksgiving morning in Sausalito and made coffee. The condo was quiet. No Velma complaining about her pillow. No Cheryl on the phone with someone about content strategy. Just me, the coffee maker, and the sound of water against the dock outside. My phone started ringing at 9:15. Velma. I didn't answer. She called again at 9:20, 9:25, 9:30. By 10 o'clock, I had 14 missed calls and a string of texts that started confused and escalated to panicked. Where are you? Why isn't the caterer answering? Nicholas, call me right now. What is going on? There's a for sale sign on the lawn. Nicholas, answer your phone. I poured a second cup of coffee and turned off my phone. Later, I'd learn what happened from the group text Cheryl sent to all her guests. One of her friends screenshotted it and posted it online, where it went semi-viral in the Bay Area social circles. That's how these things work now. Your humiliation becomes content. Cheryl and Velma had arrived at the house at 8:30 to oversee final preparations. They expected to see the catering trucks, the florist van, the photographer setting up equipment. Instead, they saw a sold sign planted in the front lawn and a lockbox hanging from the door handle. Velma's key didn't work. The locks had been changed as part of the sale agreement. She called me. I didn't answer. She called the locksmith. He told her he'd changed the locks 2 days ago at the request of the new owner. Cheryl tried the back door, also changed. She looked through the windows and saw the staged house. Furniture rearranged. Family photos gone. Everything perfectly impersonal. By 9:30, guests started arriving. Marcus and his parents, the influencer friends, the venture capitalist, the lifestyle blogger. 20 people dressed in their Thanksgiving best, expecting a $50,000 feast, finding instead 2 women standing in the driveway with no explanation. Cheryl tried to play it off at first, said there'd been a mix-up with the venue, that they'd moved the party to a restaurant, but she couldn't name which restaurant. And her hands were shaking when she checked her phone and realized the caterer wasn't responding. The florist wasn't responding. Nobody was responding. Marcus's mother, a woman who'd been going to society events since before Cheryl was born, looked at the sold sign and then at Cheryl with an expression that said she understood exactly what was happening. I think we'll head out, she said quietly. Happy Thanksgiving. One by one, the guests left. Some made excuses. Some just walked away. The lifestyle blogger took a photo of the sold sign. That photo would be on Instagram within the hour, with a caption about karma and authenticity. By 10:15, it was just Cheryl and Velma standing in the driveway of a house that was no longer theirs, in front of a party that was never going to happen. That's when Velma noticed the black binder sitting on the front step. I'd spent 3 weeks putting that binder together. Every receipt, every bank statement, Every invoice and credit card statement from the past 10 years. I'd organized it chronologically, color-coded by category, with tabs and summaries. If I was going to walk away, I wanted them to understand exactly what they were losing. The binder was 2 inches thick. Velma picked it up off the front step like it might explode. Cheryl looked over her shoulder as she opened it. The first page was a letter. I'd kept it simple. Dear Velma and Cheryl, since I'm just Nicholas and don't fit the narrative you're building, I've decided to take Nicholas and his money elsewhere. Below is an itemized accounting of every dollar I've spent on our family over the past 10 years. I thought you should know the cost of maintaining the lifestyle you took for granted. The house has been sold. The Thanksgiving event has been canceled. All vendors have been paid in full not to show up. You're welcome for the last decade. I hope your authentic family story works out. Nicholas. The rest of the binder was numbers. Category: education and private school tuition. Grades 6 to 12, $287,000 Berkeley tuition and fees. $142,000 textbooks, supplies, tutoring. $18,000 study abroad program, junior year. $22,000 category: housing Berkeley apartment, 3 years. $126,000 furniture and setup. $15,000 utilities and internet. $8,400 category: transportation Range Rover, purchased 2023, $78,000 insurance, 4 years, $19,000 maintenance and repairs, $7,200 gas cards and charging, $48,800 category: personal clothing and accessories, $43,000 spring break trips, $31,000 summer camps and programs, $28,000 medical and dental, not covered by insurance, $12,000 cell phone and laptop upgrades, $9,000 category. Business ventures online boutique. Startup costs, $40,000 debt payoff when business failed, $12,000 category. Events and entertainment birthday parties and celebrations, $23,000 concert tickets, restaurant bills, entertainment, $17,000 category. Emergencies and miscellaneous late-night rescues and bailouts, $8,000 credit card debt payments, 3 occasions, $22,000 move expenses, 5 moves, $11,000 total spent on Cheryl, 2014 to 2024, $853,400. At the bottom of the last page, I'd written one more note in red ink. This doesn't include what I spent on your mother. That's between Velma and her conscience. You called me just Nicholas. You were right. I was never family. I was a bank account with legs. The account is now closed. Enjoy building your authentic narrative without my money funding it. I'd left the binder on the step at 6 that morning before the sun came up. I'd known exactly when they'd find it, right when their perfect day was supposed to begin, right when they'd realized that everything they'd built was gone. 3 months later, I was in Barcelona. I'd left San Francisco the week after Thanksgiving, first to New York for a few consulting meetings, then London, then Paris. I had no schedule, no obligations, no one calling me at 2 in the morning because they needed something, no one expecting me to fund their next dream or fix their next crisis. I was just Nicholas. And for the first time in a decade, that felt like enough. I checked my phone occasionally. Velma had stopped calling after the first week. Her final voicemail had been angry, then desperate, then just tired. She said I'd destroyed their lives, that Cheryl was devastated, that they had nowhere to go. I deleted it without responding. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard the rest. Velma and Cheryl had moved into a 1-bedroom apartment in Daly City. Not Pacific Heights, not even close. Velma had gone back to work, something in event planning. That paid a fraction of what my wallet used to provide. Cheryl had dropped out of Berkeley, couldn't afford the tuition, and apparently financial aid doesn't come through mid-semester when your stepfather stops paying. The social fallout had been worse than the financial one. The story had spread through their circles like wildfire. The influencer friends distanced themselves. Marcus had broken up with Cheryl 2 weeks after Thanksgiving. His mother had apparently made it clear that a girl who'd treat her stepfather that way wasn't the kind of person they wanted in their family. The lifestyle blogger had written an essay about it. The cost of authenticity when influencer culture meets real consequences. It went viral. Cheryl's Instagram had gone from 30,000 followers to 8,000. The comments were brutal. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel victorious. I just felt free. I sat in a cafe in the Gothic Quarter drinking espresso and reading a book in the afternoon. Sun. No one knew who I was. No one wanted anything from me. No one called me just Nicholas, like it was an insult. A woman at the next table smiled at me. I smiled back. We talked for 20 minutes about nothing important. Architecture, coffee, the weather. When she asked my name, I said, Nicholas. She said it was nice to meet me, and for the first time in 10 years, I believed her.